So welcome to the webinar, From Idea to Reality, 3 Steps to Project Success. And we're going to talk today about kind of the end-to-end life cycle from ideation or intake of a project type or work management type request through the justification and then into the ultimate delivery and execution of a project. So first, a little bit of housekeeping. So this is a GoToWebinar. For those who haven't used GoToWebinar, there's a control panel that should be there. We do keep everyone muted. In today's environment, you never know what kind of background noises you might have. So we just, for the sake of all the participants, we keep everyone muted, but we do want you to participate. So we do have a question pane, and you should see it right there. So if you have a question at any point in time, feel free to enter it into the question pane right there. Also, that's what that just says, submit that. Getting into the presenters, Mike Taylor, that's me. I'm the founder of and CEO of Innovative E, and have with us Tad Haas, the VP of Edison 365. You want to say hello, Tad?
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for the introduction and really looking forward to the session today.
Likewise, likewise. And we also have Pamela Melville is today's moderator, and you see her email address. So if you can't get a question answered on the for some reason, or if you're having technical problems with GoToWebinar, feel free to email her there at pamela.melville, MELVILLE at innovative.com. All right, let's get going. There's the legal stuff. We'll just go on past that. So when everyone registered, there was a box that we asked you to fill in that said, what would you like to get from the webinar today? So we actually selected a few of the comments that were in that box. There were a lot of them. Everybody pretty much participated, which is great. We're going to give you guys the opportunity to participate a little bit more today as well with some interactive polls. But these are the kind of questions that folks asked that, and you might recognize your own question there in a minute, but things like the innovation steps. What are the steps for innovation? How to start a project better? Learning about the ideation process, how to be more successful in managing projects. Don't we all need to know that? How to use the framework. And I'm assuming they mean the framework like the project management framework or the framework here, but we can get into that a little bit more. Transforming ideas into effective projects, learning some ideation and tools. So you're in the right place. We're definitely going to go through that. And how to either automate or reduce the amount of copy and pasting from one tool to another. So this is something that we see a lot. We've done hundreds of implementations of work management, project management solutions, and support a lot of companies. And that last point right there is a recurring point. There's a lot of tools out there, but people use everything from email to Excel to different applications and cloud apps and everything else. And what with disconnected applications everywhere, what you end up with is a lot of copying and pasting. So we'll definitely cover that as well today. So what I'd like to talk about a little bit now is the goal in getting there. So this first statement here is what Microsoft has talked a lot about. We're Microsoft partners. We're closely aligned with their vision on the platform and tools, but they really talk about how to empower people to work the way they want while giving management the results they need. So it's a simple sentence, but it's really, really powerful because there's a lot of different ways to manage and control work and to do things around project management, things like that. So really, this is kind of an evolution from saying, here's a tool to use it on to more, there can be a lot of different tools that you could use potentially, and then you could get the results that you need. But everyone seems to still be striving for that, getting those results that you need, the visibility, the transparency, and the kind of commonality of tool sets and ways of doing things. So that's what we're going to talk a lot about today. So to get there, what we at Innovative E and Edison have done really is look at the ways to align the people, the process, and the technology to come together to really go after the visibility, the agility, and the control. So the first step that we hear all the time is that people really need visibility at everything from a work management lifecycle. From what are our requests? Or do we have everything in a spreadsheet? Do we have a a Word document that's or a database or a SharePoint list or something like this? That's all of our ideas and the things that we want to do, or our IT request or other types of work that comes in, into where our justification documents and processes, and then of course into what actual project list do we have. Just do you have a basic list of projects? These are the building blocks of being able to have better control and agility over your project and work management. And the agility really starts to come into when you have these things in place. Then you are more, and we're talking agility as in not like agile specifically, like the practice of managing software development, but more business agility to get better value out of what you're doing from your work management and your project portfolio initiatives. Because if you have better visibility and you have better tools to do the management of it, then you have that business agility. And then there's a certain amount of control too. We've seen a lot of organizations that have gone towards multiple types of work management systems, and a lot of it's very manual. And what that does is that kind of dilutes your ability to control the projects and the work that you have, because you're spending an awful lot of time chasing information and not really managing to better outcomes. And oftentimes by the time you have the right information pulled together, you're already behind the curve on getting any kind of actionable work change or direction to the project or the portfolio. So those are the things we really want to kind of cover today. Anything that you'd like to add there, Tad?
I think you've got it fairly well covered, Mike.
All right. So we're going to do a poll. I told you this is going to be a little bit interactive. I want you guys to participate here. So I'm going to ask a few questions on the slide, and then I'm going to put the poll up that will allow you to select the radio button. So does your organization have processes and an application for new ideas or requests or demand or IT intake or any of those kinds of things? Do you have a process and an application to do that? Do you have process and tools for evaluating and justifying new projects? Do you have a formal process there and the tools that support it? And then the same question for actually delivering project. Do you have the processes and tools for effectively delivering projects? And then, of course, like any good multiple choice, you can say parts of the above or none of the above. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to launch the poll. Give you guys a minute to think about it. And you should be seeing the poll now. So if you would, go ahead and select one of those answers, and then we'll review the results of that here in a minute when everybody makes their selections. All right, we're getting some poll answers here. So if you would, just give you guys a couple more, maybe another 30 seconds or so. Yeah, good. We're getting some more answers come in. Don't be shy, click a button. All right, you got about another 10 seconds, Jeopardy music. All right, and we'll close the poll there. So it looks like what we had here is folks saying we had about 20% here. Oh, my pen's, there we go. Well, get my pen to work here. There we go. 20% here, saying that there's some processes for new ideas and requests. Didn't have any, we had 0 here and 0 here, and then we had parts of all the above was the other 80%. So everybody else says that they have parts of all the above. Not surprised at all. That's a terrible 0 there. Let's do a percentage here and a percentage there. So, okay. You guys read my handwriting. That's pretty typical of what we see. That usually parts of all everything that's out there, and it can be pretty scattered. So I want to talk a little bit about what the modern work management needs are. So what are the results that folks are often going after? So really at the individual and work group level, there's always a need to improve team productivity, and there's all kinds of tools for doing that. The most basic online tools, Microsoft of course has things like Microsoft Teams and things like that. Then moving from left to right, you'll see that we're talking a little bit more about the work and project complexity. And then of course, as part of that, you have to start building in some solution or application governance and formalization. The more people you have working together and the more technology and processes, you got to have more formalization. So as you move left to right, those are kind of typically the evolution of kind of work and project management. So again, the next step would be more like, what are you trying to get a visibility into all the work and project, and then the resourcing component of that. Now you can see the projects, who's doing what on which projects, what and how much are they allocated, and when do they have availability. And then starting to move into the value stream of being able to have flexibility on managing projects and portfolios, so that you can say, now that we have all this information, we can potentially make changes to the portfolio or the projects that will better align with business conditions that are, whether it's a compliance initiative or competitive advantage or disadvantage or things like that. Today, a lot of organizations do like annual planning and replanning. And then we were just on site with a company that's a very large organization last week, and they have an annual planning process, but now they're doing a quarterly replan process for this exact reason, to kind of more, really realign their portfolio of initiatives with the situation on the ground, which comes to all the things I just mentioned. But the other thing that happens, as we all know, having done any kind of project work, is sometimes projects take longer or consume more resources. Or maybe they take less time and consume less resources, but that has an effect on your overall portfolio as well. So really getting into that, and then moving on into the aligning to strategies at the front end, and then on the back end is the last piece there of, you really have kind of strategies when you're trying to say, this is what we're trying to do and why. And on the end of the project, did you accomplish what you were looking to do? Did you have a compliance goal or a return on investment, or compound annual growth rate, or things like that you achieve? So I wanted to spend a minute to talk about the types of work management that are going on, and then kind of the tool sets, excuse me, as it applies to, again, we're a Microsoft partner, so we work on top of the platform. So some of the things that you would see in the kind of the work group and individual level were things like Teams and Planner, and then Project for the Web, which is a new really good product that Microsoft has come out with. And then as you move more to the right, there's do-it-yourself apps, there's Power User apps, and for those who haven't heard it, there's Power BI, and now that logo's old, they just renamed that Microsoft Power Automate and Power Apps, which allow you to work on the CDS platform from Microsoft. Has the Common Data Service, which is a really good platform too, and it's a very powerful platform. Then there's third-party applications. This is where we'll spend a little bit of time now, that fill a lot of needs that the platform might not be able to do easily. And these really are, built by best-in-class partners, and one of those is Edison, which we'll be seeing some of the stuff to do these components today. But the ecosystem from Microsoft is the biggest ecosystem in the world of partners, and Microsoft has embraced this continuous integration and continuous improvement, and the ecosystem's done the same thing. So when you buy a third-party app that's very closely aligned with the Microsoft strategy and platform, then these apps update as well. So you get beyond the DIY building into a situation where you can buy versus build, and oftentimes it's much less expensive to do up front, much less expensive to maintain if you want to do it at all. And these are very robust applications. We'll talk about that. Then on the far side of the spectrum, you get into complex application integrations, development-driven things. You get into Azure DevOps and things like that to help manage those things. So that's kind of the more far end of the spectrum. So I just wanted to cover those things so everybody kind of gets an idea of the work management tools, and then we'll get into kind of what does the end-to-end transformation look like. So when you think about organizational change, as I mentioned, we talked about the three things in the center there: the ideation, the justification, delivery, and that's really what we're going to focus today. Then on the end piece, the front end is the strategy, and on the outcomes and benefits realization on the other piece. So this is kind of a way to look at the chevron there from begin to end of kind of a serialized approach, which almost all work management does. Now, you could make an argument that there's loops back in there, right? You could be in delivery and find out something, that a new idea for improving a product or service that actually loops back into ideation. Then you kind of take it through that piece of the life cycle again. But that's the basic life cycle that you see over and over again.
So Mike, one comment on that. You brought up the notion that the customer you were speaking with was doing annual planning, and that they've revised that into sort of like quarterly reviews as well.
Yep.
One of the things and one of the trends we're seeing is the implementation of real benefits management frameworks, so that organizations can track the benefits, determine if projects are delivering as expected, and if not, start making the kill decisions sooner, because that frees up the resource demand, reprioritizes based off new innovations or market condition changes. And having line of sight visibility to this is very important, and the benefit realization is a key capability in that framework to make those decisions.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this organization we were talking to had exactly that kind of thing, that they're trying to do, like all organizations, they're trying to do more. There's always limited resources, no matter how good the business or environment is. And they're, what they kind of hinted at is they would like to get to almost like a real-time portfolio realignment. So as these things come in, they don't have to wait for an annual or a quarterly gap. They'd like to be able to have the tools and the processes in place that when one of those things you just mentioned, Tad, drop in their lap, they say, okay, we need to act on this today, not in 3 months. So I think that's kind of where a lot of people are thinking they'd like to get to. It's kind of an aspirational goal, but I think that's where a lot of folks want to go. Good. So moving into the next piece, and this starts to set up a little bit, and Tad, if you want to jump in here in any piece, this is actually Edison Material. There's the 3 categories we'll talk about today, and you see them in the 3 different colors there, and the product actually, not so ironically, pretty much overlays exactly what they do, right? You've got for ideation, you have ideas, and business case or justification, you have business case, and then project delivery, you have projects, and then things like project also, and all of these, by the way, all of this works on top of the Microsoft platform, O365, and can be integrated with the tools we just talked about before, the Project Online or Microsoft Project for the web. But really, it's from the different pieces there, the stage gates that you see for setting a strategy and creating the challenges, through actually triaging them and being able to move them forward and advance them into the next phase, which would be a business case. And then, of course, when you take it through there, you have a more formal and a process that can be repeated, and the tool can help drive the adoption of the process. And then the project management, you see the different pieces that you can do there with projects as well. So it really creates an end-to-end solution. And the interesting thing about the way this is aligned is you don't have to, you can do any or all of these. So you can buy or use any of these. The other piece is the Edison Data Store, which is a really powerful platform for being able to collect information from SharePoint and project for the web and put it into data marts that can then be mined with any kind of Power or BI type reporting tool like Power BI, or you could even connect other tools to it as well. So it's really powerful from that perspective. Anything you want to add there, Ted?
No, I think you've covered it. We see customers joining the journey anywhere along this continuum. Some have a real challenge around getting innovation started. Others have a real bottleneck in the approval cycles, and still others, of course, are trying to manage the challenge of delivery. And so It just depends. And it doesn't matter where you start.
Yeah, I would say that probably 60%, 70% of our clients, and maybe it's because of the space that we play in, the work and project management, they come to us at that green level. They're thinking about the projects, and they're having problems with execution and visibility and those things. But it doesn't take very long till you start talking about the next conversation that comes up. It skips up to the top, right? They start to say, well, how do we get these ideas in here in a way, and how do we move that forward? So the conversation oftentimes goes kind of bottom to top to middle. And some organizations come to us. We were just working with one last week, very large organization. They said we need all 3 of these, so we need to implement across the board capabilities. All right. If there are any questions, by the way, feel free to post them as we go along. You don't have to wait for the end. If it's germane to the conversation, we'll take a second and answer it. If not, we will answer it at the end. All right. So I really like this next slide, and this is actually one of Tad's slides as well. And actually, I may have you, if you want to talk maybe for a second about it, Tad. Is that all right? Maybe kind of talk about the funnel from envisioning through execution, and how you guys have really kind of aligned the products along that way.
Exactly. And Mike, just as you showed in the previous slide, where there's sort of a workflow of things that happen to get things from start to finish, these stage gates or these methodologies, whether they're driven from an innovation point of view or a project delivery point of view, are often much the same. How do you go through and acknowledge the workflows and accept where business challenges, project opportunities, or great ideas are coming from? And whether they're from employees throughout the enterprise, or from IT or a business units that's driving things top down, then any one of those can be reflected and used. And today, more and more, we're also sort of seeing an arrow come in from the left side there of the light bulb, which indeed indicates that ideas and project opportunities are coming from customers, and now those are driving into your opportunity pipeline and your portfolio as well.
Yeah, and they can come from anywhere. And I think one of the things that we've also seen, Tad, and you guys have been doing a lot of this, is they can the bottom-up process. There's a lot of folks who say, can we just get a good like IT demand management cycle in here, and Ideas actually works very well for that as well. And I think and it could be configured to just, here's the intake of all the stuff that people say they want, and sometimes that might come from an executive or somebody that says, hey, we need to just go do this, right? Good. All right, so now we're going to get into what the 3 steps are. So really, again, this is just a restatement now, and then we're actually going to get into the ideation and demand, or the input side of it. This overlays with the Edison ideas. So Tad's actually going to take us through each of these. So the justification, the business case, better alignment, and a structured tool and process set to do that. And then of course the project management using Edison 365 projects, which of course integrates very well also with Project for the Web and Project Online. And also, one quick thing, and you probably stealing your thunder here, Tad, but you also have, I believe, the intake product now has one of the new features is you guys can go directly to other things as well, right? Like Azure DevOps.
Correct. We're seeing many enterprises that are taking some of those early intakes that are product updates or product ideas and moving them directly into the development cycle if they're small and quick, or there's efforts that are already in flight that they want to be agile about moving those things to those workloads. So absolutely. Right.
All right, with that, Tad, I will stop sharing my screen. Actually, wouldn't just change presenter over, right?
I think that I have done so for us, Mike.
Yep.
We'll know soon enough.
I see your screen, so there we go.
Perfect.
All right.
Well, we have about 20 minutes to cover quite a bit of ground, so I'll try to be efficient in our walkthroughs and look forward to answering your questions and working with Mike and the team to do follow-ups that are appropriate. What you see in front of you, of course, is a traditional SharePoint landing page, and I'm logged in on the right-hand side with my user, my AD account, and so the software knows what SharePoint sites I can go to. It knows that I'm in part of Office 365 here, and I can do the normal day-to-day things that we do with Microsoft. Also, we can launch the Edison 365 from the waffle or directly from here. So by clicking on the SharePoint site, either working in our laptop, whether we're using sort of Surface Touch worlds or whether we're doing this from our mobile device, we have the ability to go through and do all of that secured by the Microsoft infrastructure. So where we've landed is an example of an Edison 365 page that helps with the idea intake and helps us understand what are the possible business challenges that we're trying to address. What are the most important things to our enterprise right now, and what are the top ideas that are being filtered through this. You'll see in our demonstration today, we're using these cards because they're very effective ways, both in a PC world, a Mac world, and our mobile world, to go through and visualize the work that we're doing. Let's sort of start with the end in mind and consider for a moment whatever intake process, whether it's innovation or IT, we always want to try to figure out what's coming in. So being able to know at any moment how many different items I have on my left-hand side over here coming into my funnel that help me understand how many of these new items or these projects or these ideas or innovations are in what stage, and what are we doing with those, so we can now start to use these reports and these views as a way to really get a crystal clear understanding of what we have going on in our pipeline. What does our portfolio look like of innovation ideas, of project requests, or all of the different things that we might want to work with. And when we begin the intake process, we can do this in a couple of different ways. We might be a very innovative company and we're trying to drive innovation, design thinking, and crowdsourcing So we might use Edison 365 in an ideas framed up by quarterly challenges or competitions around different business problems that we might want to work with and use the tool in this way. So we'll demonstrate that in just a second with something relevant today in the health industry. But we might also pivot and look at our world more in an IT demand management side. So instead of framing things up as new innovations, we may be using our buckets to go through around business systems. So if I wanted to quickly go through and add a new idea or add in a new project request, I could align it with one of my systems if that was the thing that we cared most about. So if we're doing something in the finance world, we can click and begin the process of adding ideas directly into the system to create very quick and easy ways of discovering what those are. And you'll see later that much of what we do, all these forms and the different things that we submit here are all changeable and configurable by you as the customer in the way that you would go through and interact with Edison 365. If we take a traditional view, we can start to see a couple of key things about our portfolio. One is how many different things are we worried about, how many new requests or ideas are coming in, what stage or status are they in, and how are we progressing with all of that. So these things are important for us no matter what we do. What's also important is that throughout the Edison 365 world, using the Microsoft platform, we're always going to give you these things we call personal views. And personal views are my favorite part of the products because they help me understand what it is I'm engaged in. What am I working on? What do I need to do to go back out and see what people are asking me to give feedback on? How am I voting or how am I progressing my business cases? How do I want to be notified through the application or through email so I can really start to see, what things am I turning on or off? I may really care a lot about Matt's idea here, but the Duncan thing about bringing your pet to work, I don't really need to get an email every time somebody wants to talk about this particular project or this particular idea. So these are simple ways for you to engage in the tool and understand what you have going on. We can do it collectively in our portfolio also to understand what we have going on at any moment that might be reflecting around particular business problems, such as our checkout free stores, such as health areas, or other key things that we happen to be focusing on. And in our world today, we're going to play a little bit with this idea of improving clinician productivities and or an opioid project request idea that is also coming into our system. And in this way, we have a collection of ideas, some which I've submitted, some which Paloma has submitted, to help us through this process of bringing things in, getting them approved, and executing well. And so we'll use this state health opioid database as a way to go through and understand, what is the challenge, what are the things that we care about with this, and then what do we want to try to do with that particular item. So you can see we might want to go through and have other people vote on it, give us some star ratings. We might want to go through and collaborate on these ideas, post other data links or graphics or images or documents that we care about, as well as have threaded discussions on this throughout our team. We'll come back to this in a moment because we actually want to go in and look at the business case that we create. But the way that we do that is to say, we have a business problem, in this case, clinician productivity, and a state opioid health database would really help on that. But we need to go through and learn more about this particular business problem. How are we engaging? What strategies does this align to? Perhaps maybe we want to work within Microsoft Teams to share this information with people as well. Or we might want to go straight to taking some actions on the ideas that we have. And one of the first things that you could do with this is to go through and have your leadership team evaluate an idea. And they can do this up front In ideas, they can drill down in more through business case, and they can track all the actuals again in project. But this lets us go through and say, for this particular thing, a state health database, we think the impact of doing this would be high. The risk is relatively low. The cost isn't too bad either. We think that this will help in the revenue, and we think this will give us some achievability. So what you just watched is Edison 365 to go through and say, yep, this scores pretty high. I could click the Create Project button if I wanted to do that directly. I could simply go through and save this item, or I could go through and collect from this group and move them directly into the business case stage. And that's what we would do here, just click on the Create Business Case.
So that solves that copy and paste problem, right?
Solves that copy and paste problem, exactly, Mike.
Absolutely.
And one of the other things that we will do is provide these Kanbans so that you can see the stage of your portfolio. Are things new? Who are the reviewers? What stages do we want to walk them through? So now I've said my deploy opioid database requires more information. So when I click in on that, we'll go to the business case and see it. But maybe I think Paloma's idea is so good, we want to move it directly over to awarded. So she would get a notification that this has moved along our stage gates, and she can take the appropriate action.
And all those stages are all completely configurable to whatever their business or an organization wants to do, right?
That's exactly correct, Mike. And those are configurable by you as the partner working with them, or by the customer themselves as they go through and do this as well. Now I'm back on my my health database thing here, and what I really want to do is go directly to the business case, because we've already clicked the go button, and the software has brought this into the business case module that we'll start to see here. Now in this database scenario, we actually want to collect a little bit more information about the whole business problem, so that we can go through here and start to say, well, what are the benefits of doing this? What are the timescales to actually get this thing approved? And for example, what would the cost on these items be? And this gives us a very quick, easy way to go through and edit these, to track the resources, to track the ideas around them, and then start to look at, well, is this project, is this business case viable or not? How do we go through and know when we're going to get our payback? And when do we look at these relative to the positive ROI or cash flow that goes against that? How much or how little information you track with any one of these lets you go through and configure what these screens look like. And I'll show you another example in a moment. But what's cool here is you can see on the top, we're currently in the feasibility stage. I could click Create Project again if that's what I wanted to do, or submit this to the next level where we want to go through and say, okay, it's time for us to go through and move that forward. I could go through and edit the stages for these and say now it's ready to go into launch preparation, make some comments about these, and then start to move these things forward. And now it's moved directly to launch preparation. And so this is the real power of business case, as it lets you start to look at, what do I have in the hopper? How do I go through and manage these business cases to know which states they might be in? You can see red, yellow, green here, because we give you the ability to go through and do that. Start to flesh them out in more cases and put additional data that we might choose to use in the actual approval processes in working with these, including who the managers are, who the people are that we need to get involved with these, who the approvers might be, and walk them directly through that cycle.
That's great. And just like ideas, all those chevrons, those stages are all configurable as well.
Exactly
Awesome.
correct. And just like ideas, I also know directly on my personal page what I'm responsible for, the cases that I'm managing, and the things that I need to do next, such as review these cases or step through the process as well.
So this solves that problem of not knowing where it is, right? Which we see all the time over the years.
Exactly. Who's got the ball? And that we care quite a bit about. Right.
Yep.
So I know that currently Paul is going through and doing the actions required on this. Michael's doing the thing on the SAP, and there's other ones that we're going through again to see some of these minor break fixes, and some of them might be big. And again, we're very people focused. So in Edison 365, you'll see lots of pictures and lots of people. To that end, when we start to look at the business case, we want to then begin aggregating our business cases to see what are the demands across the portfolio. Lots of people are doing this sort of at the project level when they bring in and start the work as they're assigning folks. What Edison 365 does is gives a much earlier view of this, so you can start to see what's coming in, how are we looking at these. You know, as I start to drill down on my developers and look at the workload that's coming through for them, you know, if I really want to drill in and see exactly, you know, those aren't my problems right now, I've got bigger fish to fry, I can start to walk through these and start to see, you know, what's my total demand look like, where am I spending it on, what stages are things in, you know, for director's approval, and what are the outcomes we're looking for in those types of work. And once we've approved these, Mike, we would then take them over to Edison 365 projects, and then they would drop into our pages as well. And as you know, there's a very consistent look and feel for me here. So just as I hit the create ideas button or the create business case, I can do the same thing here on my create projects. And by doing that, have full templates that include the required documents, the traditional schedule templates, the required resource demands, and all of the rest of that as well, giving us a picture of the work that we have in flight and the things that we care about. Often going right back to my personal page so I know what I need to work on as well, as that will be important for me when we go through to look at these different pieces on those for the things that we care about. So here then is my opioid database project, and I can click in on that and start to see whatever details that I build out and frame on that as well. But if we take a look at the type of things that we want to look at all up in the portfolio, I'm more likely to want to go through and say, all right, well, how many projects do I have? You know, which are the ones that I might own as the owner? What are the things that are of a certain type? So standard projects that we might be working with, just depending upon the various things that we care to do. So filtering is super simple. I can go through and do the reports that we've shown and more, of course, but this lets me quickly see the status of all of my IT projects or anything along those lines.
Yeah, when
And
you have
whether I look at, go
a
ahead.
portfolio of, yeah, so some of the customers we work with, you know, collectively, you'll have project portfolios of hundreds of projects. So this makes it super simple to get to the work you need to get to quickly.
Exactly, and I might look at that in the card view because I'm mobile at the moment. I might look at them in the table view because I've got long lists, or I might want to go through and look at my roadmap, take a look at my whole portfolio, start to look at what's going on in the things that I'm doing. And inside of any one of these projects, I can simply click to it, get to the details around that project, start to engage with my team. I can start to look at the status. I can track the normal things that you would care to do. But just as we talked about earlier at the beginning of the session, I might also want to go through and do cost benefit analysis. I might want to track my actual financial benefits and start to see, you know, who's responsible for these financial benefits that we talked about. I might be, Paul might be, someone else. And now we're doing the closed loop on that project management perspective. And so it's a great way to go through and look at all of the things that we care about, whether there's schedules that we care about in this way, whether we're looking at timelines that we might want to be able to go through and edit on our own here. So if we go into our timeline and want to start to drag and drop relationships from the video build to the start of build complete and start to do traditional project management, then that's great. We can do that directly as we wish. Because Edison 365 is configurable, you can keep your risk management logs, your change logs, all the different types of things that you might choose to manage all in one place. Speaking of all in one place, as we go to wrap up here, Mike, there's sort of two things that we also want to make sure to highlight. And that is, as you brought up at the top of the work items, that we can start to drag and drop these items into Azure DevOps if we choose to work through items in that way. Or if you're a project manager and you want to continue using Microsoft Project, then you can have all of your metadata, your big portfolio. You can see the big picture directly here, but on any individual work or project item, I could go through and say, I really want to continue to manage this effort through Microsoft Project. And while I keep the details and all the rest of the fun, including other schedules, other timelines that might be about the simple process of getting things done, when I get to engineering or new product, they might actually be using the Microsoft Project Plan, which of course is represented here as well, or directly linked to the MPP plan. This is true both for Microsoft Project and it's true for Project Online. Just one more quick set of things to show and then wrap up with those questions. And then traditionally, we want to take a look at the portfolio from a project point of view, where we're managing those risks, those issues, those things that we're trying to do and want to get done through our life cycle. So just as we've done before, we'll be able to go through and look at those risks. We'll be able to go through and filter in on the particulars and be very hot and active as we start to drill down on the things that we care about in our project and in our portfolio. So with that, Mike, I want to wrap up the demo and check to see if there are other questions that people have or things you want to make sure we point out as well.
Right, that was really good. Thanks, Ted. Those reports are, there's a lot of data on those reports. So as Ted was just saying, that was a very quick walk through all three products, but the recording and deck will be provided if you guys want to go in and look into any more detail there. Are there any questions now that we can answer? I haven't seen anything come up in the question tab. Anybody have any questions? While we're giving that a second for questions, go ahead and pop the next slide up there if you would, Ted. So for next steps, if you guys want to learn more, of course, we're sending out all the information. Happy to do personalized demonstration. We know, as we talked about earlier, and Tad pointed out, different organizations are in different places in the life cycle and have different needs. Happy to demo any one of the three products or all three, kind of go more the end to end. We also are happy to offer free trials in any of the products or all of them together and help you set up with an environment that you can play with. We provide a little bit of support collectively to help you understand how the tool works and get the most out of it. So we're happy to do that as well. So I think that's about it. I still don't see any questions. We're right at the 45-minute mark. But if anything comes to mind for anyone, feel free to reach out to us directly. We've got the contact information on the deck as well, or reach out to myself. I think it's my email that's in there. But yeah, there it is. But you also can find us at info, or you can reach out to Brian Quick, who's on our director of sales. So with that, I guess, Tad, do you have anything else you'd like to add, or we're ready to wrap it up?
No, Kurt, Jackson, Owen, all of the team and the people that gave us some time this afternoon, thank you very much for participating, and look forward to your questions and following up.
All right, great. Thanks, Tad. Thanks, everybody. Everybody have a great day.